Hello Miracle Tribe, this is going to be a video on Life Path 11. They are master numbers. It's also relevant to you if you are born on the 11th. More relevant if you're born on the 11th than the 29th, because born on the 29th, it's also 2 plus 9 equals 11. Anyway, it is strongest. The information that I'm about to give you is the strongest when you count your entire birthday, and you get an 11 life path. So let's go over the master numbers. Hi Kat. So I'm going to be giving you information about the symbolism, the essential traits of 11, the purpose, gifts, inner gifts, the challenges, how to grow and develop, as well as careers, and some famous people. So if you're an 11 life path, please let me know in the comments, and also give me some feedback if this makes sense to you. And if I did any justice by helping you understand what your role is in life according to numerology. So let's begin. So symbolism of 11. When we look at tarot cards, justice, the justice card is the 11th card, and it's a judge holding a scale of balance and a sword. So it's also relevant to 8 life paths, but since this is the 11th tarot, let's analyze this. With the judge in there, holding that balancing scale, it represents balance between the spiritual and the material world, like truth and justice. And also the sword it symbolizes cutting through a situation, and represents equilibrium, like how do we come into balance and be equal with this situation. And a lot of 11 life paths, like 1 and 1, they're constantly learning how to balance. And then the next symbolism I have for 11 is, well, I just mentioned it, balance. It's not actually a symbolism, but like if you just look at it, it's also an awakening number. It's 11 itself, according to numerology, it's intuitive qualities with leadership and creativity, because with the double 1, you have double the energy of creative energy, as well as the pressure to succeed, the pressure to excel and be the best at what you do. But you're meant to stand out in some way, being a very peaceful leader, like the peaceful warrior, 11 life paths, or those born on the 11th or the 29th. The next symbolism is in astrology, which Aquarius is the 11th sign. If you're watching, say hello. Aquarius is the 11th sign, and that sign is known they're known to be progressive, eccentric, very forward thinking, really into technology. It's a humanitarian type of sign, very original as well, because again, like the double 1s, they're the originals. They innovate things. They're the OGs of numerology, and you have double that power. The shadow side of Aquarius is running away from your emotions. So 11 life paths, or those born 11th, they're naturally like very feely people, but sometimes they just fear it and they just shut the emotional side away from fear. The last symbolism I have is like a ton of people, they start seeing 1111, and that's usually the first sign that people see when they are awakening, and then other numbers come, and which means something different to everybody. So it's a calling. I see it as a calling from source, from spirit or your own spirit, and it's waking you up to your purpose. Like there's a new life that you haven't noticed before, or you're waking up to your true self. So yeah, that's the 4th symbolism I have for 11. Let's move on to traits. So traits of an 11 life path. They're caring, deeply caring. They're also reliable. They're dependable, sensitive, honest, naturally feely, like I said in the beginning. They're also cooperative, because 1 plus 1 equals 2, and 2 itself are known as people who are very cooperative. Also, learning to be cooperative and independent, knowing which side to take. Also very charismatic, their energy is. They're also sincerely compassionate for all beings, all life. Also idealistic, artistic, refined. So like refined as in when they're focusing on something, they just get rid of the distractions or the impurities, really focusing on the essential details. And also highly intuitive, and they see both sides of situations. They are also pulled by morals or ethics, and they're known as people who have very deep love for family and friends. They just go with the flow. They also have a love for the depth of culture, spirituality. They're spiritually inclined naturally, and they're also really enjoy artistic expression, or they're pulled towards that. And they like experimental ideas, because like with a double 11, it's the number of the originals, and you have double that energy of creativity, a force, double that force of creation. There's two extremely different lifestyles for 11 life paths. So either they're the ones using their spiritual powers to inspire people, using their artistic gifts to inspire and uplift others, or they are distracted by like the basic life, like being distracted by just wanting to pursue financial reward, and they're living a life that's a bit colorless. So two extremes. Now moving on to the purpose of 11 life paths. So they're known as spiritual leaders, inspired healers, or inspired artists, and they're master intuitives. So they are here to guide and inspire humanity into awareness. So that could be personal awareness, that could be spiritual awareness. And also they have a unique potential to fulfill a higher purpose. And some, like I said in the beginning, there's two extremes. Some are enticed by just basic needs, like for example, just pursuing social status, or just pursuing like consumerism, materialism. So it's a life path that has a lot of pressure to succeed, pressure to master something in their life, and like once they do, they feel like, okay, great, like I mastered this skill. Now I want what's the next thing to master? So like a lot of pressure to fill this really responsible incarnation as an 11. So they must be working in areas where they're inspired by people or their environment. And if they're not, they're just living that mundane, enticed by basic needs world. Their path, as they're mastering something on a big project, it tends to attract great praise or great criticism. So they must remain balanced. They must remain steadfast on their path towards what they want to work on. Because like with the double ones, if you are wanting to create something very different from society, of course you're going to attract criticism because it's different. People are not used to it. So like just think of like Steve Jobs, but you're more double 11. As you're inventing something new, giving out new ideas, there is going to be criticism of course, or great praise. Anyway, let's move on to the next. I'm still talking about purpose. So on your way to accomplishing anything spiritual, artistic, creative, you're gonna learn and mature the most by cooperating with others. Cooperation is huge for 11 Life Path. They're not here to be working alone. They really do enjoy intimate partnerships that give very compatible partnerships. And they do learn a lot. They grow a lot from getting involved with mutual support, like giving and receiving, and also they need to learn how to receive help and support as well. Like I said, again, they're not here to do it alone. And also to be balancing, to create inner balance inside. So, for example, like I said, giving and receiving, when do I cut off? When do I finish giving so much? Like, at what point do I stop giving, like, so I don't, like, deplete myself, like, learning balance. So, with the balance thing, they're also here to learn how to respect their personal boundaries, because, like I said, sometimes they will just give their all, and then they find that these people or this person didn't give them enough appreciation, and then they just all of a sudden like alternate to withdrawing, like emotionally, or just cutting off, and then just feeling resentment, underappreciated. And another huge thing, part of their purpose, is they're here to work directly with spirit. So whatever you think that is. Is that source? Is that your higher self? Is your truest self, your intuition, your own wisdom? When you're working with your career, working directly with spirit is part of your purpose. Because when you do work with spirit, you're inspiring. To inspire is to live through the spirit. And since you have double ones, so one itself, one life path themselves, they deal with insecurities, they deal with self-esteem, and they have issues with that naturally. Nothing negative about it. So learning through those issues, they learn how to develop self-confidence, self-awareness, self-motivation. It's all about the self. And with the 11s, it's double that. So they're also here to work through their self-esteem, because they will come across like feeling inferior when they compare themselves with others. 11 life paths. So they need to learn not to let those insecurities or those feelings of self-worth getting in the way of where they want to go, getting in the way of them being a human being. For example, let's say like they think, oh well, like I don't want to look like a fool, so I'm just not gonna risk it. And if you keep thinking it that way, you're gonna lose a lot of opportunities. And actually, those who are willing to look like fools, they grow the most, and they develop the most. So along with one and one together, their key to success is to cooperate with one or more partners, and that's with personal, that's with business, as well. Because like I said again, they're not here to do things alone. And then they do have challenges when it's related to contribution. Okay, so contribution, cooperation, collaboration, those three C words are vital to their growth and development, and they're on a constant path to maturing into the 11. So an issue with contribution, they first might feel resistant to it, because they'd rather just say, oh, I'll just do everything myself, or they'll just do one part and they assign another partner one part, and they just avoid cooperating, avoid collaborating, just because the 11 is like, oh, I don't want any conflict, any of that. So besides avoiding conflict, it's just from comparing, like having thoughts of comparing who contributes the most in a group. So the 11 life paths, they need to rise above that and just learn to collaborate with everybody instead of comparing who contributed the most. They are also here as part of their purpose. They're also here to learn and collaborate without only becoming a helper, because I will see in groups, if I know their life path, like it's mostly like 2s or 11s, they just end up doing everything for everybody. They become the helper, the assistant, but they're here to help equally, not only be the assistant, not to be a servant in that way where their energy is depleted. So it's working with others. And last thing about purpose is they're constantly developing and maturing through life when it comes to cooperation, like I said. So some of them tend to be late bloomers in certain areas of life, but they really do gotta get involved with teamwork. And now let's move on to the gifts and the light side of 11 masters. So to others, 11 life paths, they're known as loyal allies, or allies, am I saying that right? Allies, and supportive friends, and they're creative. They tend to give really a lot of creativity to their strategies in their careers. They're also on the gift. The positive side is they're inspired. They're led through the spirit. They're led by inspiration, and they also inspire other people. So inspiration is huge. Like they have a huge potential to be inspirational or live a colorless life. And so that inspiration, it helps other people, like when they're watching you succeed, it helps them. It's like a shining light for them to follow a clear path of service as well. So like you are leading by example. On a day-to-day, on the positive side, you're using your creative or artistic gifts to improve the quality of life for other people. And then throughout your whole life, all the things that you've done, the big picture of it is that you are helping raise the consciousness for humanity. So that's huge potential to do that. Like, for example, write a book that helps or inspires other people to think differently about what success truly is or how to succeed, or find a cure for something. So with the double 11s as part of your gift, you have a lot of energy, a lot of creative energy, a lot of potential, a lot of vitality, exceptional vitality, to accomplish any goal, to accomplish any big goal. And so you're to use that to persevere through any project. And also, again, you're not here to work alone, like for the third time that I said it. On the positive side, you're cooperating with others and you're collaborating with others. So getting involved in teamwork, in group projects, in sports teams is going to help you grow a lot. It's really beneficial. And plus, on the positive side, you're not concerned with comparing people's contributions anymore. Okay? And the last thing I'm going to mention about the gifts and the light side of 11 is they no longer feel the need to, or the drive to prove themselves to like gain approval or gain validation from their peers. And even if they're like slightly feeling that, they're on the positive side, they still feel secure that they are contributing and know that they are inspiring or a bright example of what it means to use your artistic gifts or creative gifts and work with inspiration. So now on the challenge or the shadow side of 11 life paths, or those born on the 11th day or the 29th day of any month. So I'll have a few listed. So I'm going to list some shadow traits, and I don't like saying negative. I don't really call anything negative, just shadow. So there's egocentric. They can be very insecure or feel inferior. 11s on the shadow, they can only, on the shadow side, they'll just see greatness only in themselves. Or on the other extreme, they feel very inferior, also being dishonest, feeling too easily wounded, like hypersensitive to other people's criticism, or they're inhibiting themselves from taking risk. So it's better to be willing to look a bit foolish. And also on the shadow side, they're giving into peer pressure, like they're enticed by what their friends are doing, they just follow it. And then the last trait I listed for shadow side is running away from their emotions. They have very powerful intuition, so it's better for them to listen to their intuitive voice to make the last decision or the last say, instead of just using their rational, logical mind. It's just stored information, but intuition is like all-encompassing and it's connected to spirit. Next thing I have listed for a challenge or a shadow side is not having a strong sense of who they are. So with the 2, they can easily merge their ego to other people's egos and follow whoever is more powerful and dynamic. With the 11s, they would, if they don't know who they are, they'd end up feeling lost, confused, and so they just follow whatever and they're misled, and they'll end up being spiteful or indifferent to the people that they originally followed. Another thing on the challenge or shadow side is if they don't know who they are, they'll alternate in between. And that's why in the beginning I mentioned balance is very important, because if they don't know who they are, so like again, 1 is balance. It's like they could end up taking this friend's side, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, actually I'll take this friend's side, or they'll just give so much give their all, and then they end up, okay, nobody appreciated what I did, and they just completely emotionally cut themselves off or withdraw and resent. So it's all about like, wow, we're so much alternating, and if you're continuously on the path of alternating, switching back and forth, it's hard to get anything done. So like that's on the shadow side. You don't know what your true self or who your true self is. The next, I have 2 more listed for challenges. On the shadow side, if you don't know who you are, you might end up becoming very overwhelmed with your insecurities, and then that causes energy to be blocked, to be held in. And if it turns inward, it could lead to addictions, or isolation. And if it's outward, then it manifests as like doing illegal things, getting involved in illegal activities, or it can manifest into abuse. One more thing about the challenge of an 11 life path is if they fail to take responsibility for living with virtue, and they are enticed by like consumerism or social status or just seeking financial reward. Okay, that's the last part of the challenges and shadow side. So let's move on to how to develop from that. So I have a lot listed. So there's gain self-awareness. Okay, so like earlier I said, not knowing who they are and just following your peers. Gaining self-awareness through personal development, and that can be done through yourself, just meditation, because you do get a lot of answers within, or they can get therapy, understand the psychology of how they think, of who they are, or anything related. And the next advice I have for developing is practice discernment or discrimination. And I don't mean discrimination racially, I meant like knowing the difference between for example, mind versus intuition, the difference between like just hi Chris, or the difference between just giving your all versus respecting your own boundaries. And if you do practice discernment, the ability to judge wisely, to judge well, even judging people's characteristics, it's going to significantly assist you with staying on your path. The next one I listed for how to develop for 11 masters is the best way to express and grow personally is through spiritual awareness. So like starting with the self personal, then they have that huge potential to rise, to become aware of a lot more that's going on, especially spiritually. This is the most spiritually inclined number, 11. And to seek anything that has substance or depth, which does lead them to virtues and morals naturally. The next thing I listed is listening to in your intuition more, because they do have profound intuition that really connects them to their spirit. And also listening to your intuition, working directly with spirit, it's going to help you stay even more clear and steadfast, strong on your path. Next thing I listed is when it comes to money or business, 11s do have a higher demand for financial resources, but they must find ways where they can express spirituality practically, like in everyday life, and also to first be guided by your intuition before you get involved with big business. I have 3 more listed for how to develop. The next one is to have strong relationships, to like really nurture strong relationships, whether that be personal or in business. It's very crucial for their success to work one-on-one with people. And they do need to engage in some kind of teamwork, like a team sport, group projects, or being in a band, or in a sports team. It's going to help them know how to balance collaborating. And then last 2, also the next thing for how to develop is being receptive to assistance and not rejecting it immediately, because again, they do cooperate a lot. They do learn a lot from cooperation, like giving and receiving. And the last one I have for development is to practice patience and self-compassion, because with the 2, they can be hypersensitive, but they have a huge mission on here, like a huge potential to fulfill that. And there is like a very with so much potential also becomes a lot of responsibility, so they have to be careful to be moderate, to just have compassion for who you are, instead of all of a sudden reacting or like exploding when something like frustrates you. And I think that frustration could like build up and then you just react so big. So like just balancing in moderation, being patient, and having compassion for yourself. So that's it for development. Let's move on to careers. So for 11 life paths, I listed down artist, designer, inventor, filmmaker, political reformer, a diplomat, writer, musician, educator, social worker, religious leader, philosopher, even a psychic, a mystic. They could be personal growth instructor or a personal trainer. They could be teachers of any subjects that are related to culture, learning a lot about culture, the depth of culture. They could be professional performers, and as long as they have roles or positions that where they can practice, like by example, morals or virtues, or get involved with spirituality or healing, or any job involving inspiring others, really fits them when they have an environment where that inspires them. Okay, last part of the Masters live stream is some famous 11 life paths, and I feel like my list of celebrities or famous people I went through, the 11 is the longest list that I have. So I'm gonna list like maybe 20. So I have Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, entrepreneur, for those entrepreneurs, you know him. I have Robert Downey Jr., Vishen Lakhiani, Prince William, Emma Watson, Mark Ruffalo, the guy who played the recent Hulk. There's Michael Jordan, Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. There's Kanye West, Jennifer Aniston, Kate Moss, Coco Chanel, Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer, Rosa Parks, Vera Wang, Jackie Kennedy. I find a lot of these people are very artistic. They're just peacemaking. A lot of diplomats are 11. Barack Obama is also, actually he's a 2. Just kidding. A lot of inspirational teachers that I found on here who teach by example, and they're inspired and they help you become inspired as well, living through the spirit. Anyway, that is it for the live stream on 11 life paths, and for those born on the 11th or the 29th. Let me know what you think, if this resonates, and if you have any questions. Also, if you need personalized guidance from me, feel free to message me and book a session. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed your day. Bye.